Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Beautiful sunshiny day in Winona County. We will start our meeting with public comment. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak and address the county board, just step to the podium and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Robert Bradley, 25727 Leeward Road. That's out at Twin Bluffs. I have a lighting issue, a nuisance lighting issue with a neighbor, and she's flipped on and off lights like 20, 30 times at night. This has been going on for years. Sheriff's Department can't do anything about it because there's no laws on the book. Planning and zoning haven't gotten any resolutions there because they've got laws on the book for commercial, more or less, not so much residential, and I live in the country. And recently, this person has gotten a flagpole light. There is no flags in the area or anything for the light up except for my house and the fence. And I've got this all on video where she's come out and turned it and pointed it up and put it on a high spot. There's two settings, and that's a light pollution. We have shades, but darkening shades, the light goes around them. So you can't really keep things, out of your house that way. So I'm just wanting to know if the board would consider making some laws on nuisance lighting. I gave you guys some paperwork on that from another place that had some of the laws to kind of give you an idea of the type of stuff that you're looking at, maybe trying to enforce. And so I'm working with Marcy, and Karen is gone right now till the 21st, and we'll be talking to her some more too. But this is an issue that just keeps getting worse and worse. So hopefully there's something you guys can do. I'm not the only one that has these type of issues from what Eric Johnson has told me with planning.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Robert. Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board this morning?
Morning, everyone. Bob Amanek, County Recorder. It's fair time, and I'm here with the annual invitation from the Winona County Fair Board to please explore the fair during the next 5 days. It starts tomorrow. New this year is the fair robot. Thursday is the recognition day. Each of the people that have a day at the fair will be recognized. We have two outstanding seniors. We have always had that, but for the very first time this year, both are women. History has always been one man and one woman. So it reflects the applications that were received and the extremely high quality of the individuals recommended. We have a fair king and queen. We have a farm family being recognized. It will be the 100th anniversary of Farm Bureau, so they're going to be having just a brief couple minutes on their history. And we're extremely fortunate this year. We have two sesquicentennial farms. And during our program, we will recognize all Century Farm and sesquicentennial farm past recipients. And usually there's 25 to 30 in the group. So we're looking forward to seeing these folks. All right, the two sesquicentennial farms. The first is near Waitoka in Wiscoy Township. Been in the family since 1866. Part of the original farm home is still standing, and the farm is 199 acres, and the very, very proud owners are Marty and Cassandra Waldo. And then south of Wyattville in Hart Township, the Bernard and Gerald Hennessy farm, been in the family since 1865, presently 258 acres. This is over 40 sesquicentennial farms that we've recognized, and we've recognized over 200 Century Farms. That is almost a landmark within counties in Minnesota. Winona County is extremely proud of our heritage, and those numbers reflect that. Okay, our recognition program, it's at 2 o'clock on Thursday, and I have extended an invitation to the robot, but I have not yet received a response if it will be part of the program. All right, looking forward to seeing everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob.
It'll be a long one, too.
Yeah. You ordered up good weather, Bob?
Yeah, typical fair weather.
Typical fair weather, yeah. Hot and sticky.
Getting around.
50% chance of rain.
Oh, yeah.
Just be prepared. All right, is there anyone else? All right, not seeing anyone else step forward, we'll move on to our agenda item 3, approval of the county board minutes. 3.1 closed session, June 26th.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Commissioner Olson, second by Commissioner Pomeroy to approve the closed session meeting minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. 3.2, Board of Appeal and Equalization from June 26,
Move
2018.
to approve?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the Board of Appeal and Equalization. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. And 3.3, County Board Meeting, June 26, 2018.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy, second by Commissioner Jacob to approve the County Board Meeting Minutes, June 26th. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. Item 4, acknowledge receipt of approved committee minutes. 4.1, the Board of Adjustment from May 17th.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Kavesi to approve the Board of Adjustment May 17th meeting minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Approved. The Plant 4.2, Planning Commission, May 17th.
Move approval.
Second?
Motion made by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Pomeroy to approve the meeting minutes from the Planning Commission, May 17th. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. Moving on, consent comments and approval of the agenda. Mr. Fritz? Commissioner Kavesi?
Nothing.
Commissioner Pomeroy? Commissioner Olson? Commissioner Jacob?
I'd like to pull item 6.8.
6.8. Okay, so we will make that 7.0. Okay, all right, and I would like one announcement at the end. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Jacob, second by Commissioner Kavesi to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. Amended agenda approved. Mr. Fritz, if you would read the consent business items, please.
Okay, consent business, committee recommendation, 6.1, approved conditional use permit for Poplar Street LLC and Pretaski Land LLC to allow a mid-sized independent automotive sales dealership. 6.2, approved conditional use permit for Brent and Allison Johnson to allow for construction of a home on less than 40 acres. Department recommendations, 6.3, approve resolution to cancel stale warrant checks. 6.4, approve update to fee schedule. 6.5, approve resolution to support Southeast Minnesota Wastewater Initiative Program. 6.6, approve resolution for amended Southeast Minnesota Water Resources Board Agreement. 6.7, approve Root River 1 Watershed 1 Plan 2018-2019 Sub-Agreement. 6.8 was pulled. 6.9, approve gun range agreements with Lewiston and Goodview Police Departments. 6.10, approve write-off of uncollectible accounts. 6.11, confirm payment of disbursements. And that completes the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy, seconded by Commissioner Jacob to approve the consent business as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. Okay, moving to general business. It was 6.8. Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, so on maybe pages 69 and 70 of our packet, I certainly understand we need to extend our comprehensive water plan. I'm concerned with the letter that's written to Ed Lenz. The third paragraph, I'd be much more comfortable with that letter if the third paragraph was eliminated, and on the resolution on page 70, the fourth paragraph, if that was eliminated. Specifically on the third paragraph of the letter, it states, we feel that the most reasonable and efficient way to manage our local water resources is through combined efforts in planning of a watershed-wide management plan as proposed in the One Watershed, One Plan process. I think that remains to be seen whether that's the best route to go or not. And we simply need an extension of our existing comprehensive plan. And that's certainly making a statement that I think is premature to make. So I think we could accomplish everything that is desired to be accomplished here without weighing in on how we feel the One Watershed, One Plan is working. I'd like to see how it works. And then furthermore, for a One Watershed, One Plan to work, we need collaboration from Winona County SWCD, which is not there right now, Wabasha County SWCD, and Wabasha County Board. Those would all be interrelated. So at this point, I'd like to support the resolution, support the extension of the comprehensive water use plan, but not tie it to a statement about One Watershed, One Plan. Just see how that develops as it develops.
Okay. And for clarification, then on page 70, so it's the fourth, you'd like to eliminate 1, 2, 3, 4, where Winona County is committed to effective coordination of water management efforts within its boundaries and with watershed partners as they transition into One Watershed, One Plan.
Yeah, so specifically I had highlighted the last part after boundaries because we don't know what our partners are going to do if they're going to come on board. We don't know what Wabasha County SWCD, Wabasha County Board, and Winona County SW. We're making assumptions and we're making statements that I just don't think we're ready to make. I think we need to see how we've gone along with the Root River One Plan. We're on board with that. Let's see how that plays out, and then just extend our water plan as the rest of this would state, and let things. I'm not saying we won't do a One Watershed, One Plan, but I feel like this is putting words in the mouth of the county board, and I'm not in agreement with them.
Discussion, staff, you want to hear from Sheila? Sheila, I think you're the craftsman of this resolution.
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
Well, Commissioner Jacob suggested these changes, and in my communication with Bowser, who oversees all of the water plans in the state, they said for me to transition, to extend the water plan as we are intending to do, which should be more abbreviated, it would be updating the action plans and the executive summary. And it would not need to go to the Bowser board for approval. They would approve it, but it wouldn't go to their board. And but if we move forward without intention of moving into One Watershed, One Plan, then I have to do a complete water plan update, and that takes 18 months to do. Because what we're doing is we're saying, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing One Watershed, One Plan. And Winona County SWCD did approve, well, when it was brought to their board to consider an application for the One Watershed, One Plan, they said, we're interested, but not at this time. This extension would allow us to pursue One Watershed, One Plan, just not at this time. And I can give you. And what I passed out is a plan of a map of the state of Minnesota, and the watersheds that are highlighted in gray are those that are either have a completed watershed, one plan in place, or they're at some phase of transitioning to that. And so you can see that the route is high. They're completed. They were the first one in the state. And what the board approved this morning was on consent was the implementation grant, that the funds that would be going to Winona County to help with parts of that plan. Most of the funding went to SWCDs. And right now we have the Cannon and the Cedar that are working on their One Watershed, One plans now. And from what I understand, the Zumbro watershed is moving forward. They had an application process that at the beginning of this month, and they submitted an application. I know that it will be very unlikely that they won't get selected. They have already moved forward with MOUs with their participating counties. So they had a very strong application, and they had all their bases covered, and all their participating counties and SWCDs and watershed districts supported that. As far as one watershed, one plan for the Mississippi River, Winona, and La Crescent, which includes the rest of Winona County, excluding the route SWCD and Houston County, they support it. They've already submitted their request that they want to move forward with one watershed, one plan for that area. And Winona County SWCD stated the same. Olmsted County SWCD, they have already submitted that they would like to move forward with either the Zumbro or the one watershed, one plan for the Mississippi Winona, which covers that portion, the whitewater portion of their county. So they have all moved forward and said, yes, we support this. And Olmsted SWCD didn't support it. They would support either one, but right now they're supporting the Zumbro because they submitted that application. Their county water plan expires in 2023. So if we move forward with one watershed, one plan, that would fit very nicely with their watershed management planning. So that's what I know for some of the other surrounding counties. And Wabasha County did support, and their SWCD did support one watershed, one plan for the Zumbro.
So, so I'm just suggesting we do the same thing as Wabasha and Olmsted County, who are both saying one or the other. They're moving forward. Right. They're saying
in this funding cycle.
Yeah, they're moving forward with Zumbro, both Olmsted and Wabasha, and they're saying we don't want to do them both at this time.
Right.
Which would be,
that's correct.
They want to see how one plays out before they jump into the second one. I'm saying let's see how River plays out before we jump into this tie into Wabasha, Olmsted, and Houston counties.
Well, if the board approves this resolution, in 2 years we would be able to submit an application, because that's how long it would take for the Zumbro to move forward. I do not want staff that have both the Zumbro and the Mississippi River Winona watershed. That would be Olmsted and Wabasha County. So that was their intent, and if I did an application for the cycle, that's what I was going to state in that application, that please do not select both of us. If Zumbro had more things in order, go with them, but not with us. And so if they move forward with that in this next funding cycle and get selected by the end of the summer, in 2 years, so in 2020, we could apply for the one watershed, one plan, and have it done before the 2023 deadline.
We have until 2023 to decide whether we want to be part of the next one watershed, one plan or not. And to me, this is becoming more like a state mandate than a voluntary program.
It's not a state mandate. Both the county water plan and one watershed, one plan are voluntary.
Yeah, well, voluntary willing participation, let's see how River plays out, and then we'll decide whether it's a good fit for Winona County and our interaction with Wabasha, Olmsted, and Houston. So I'm saying go ahead with applying for the extension, just like you're asking, except for eliminate the parts that are committing us. You're committing a timeline on when we're going to apply for what, and it's a statement probably that'll be referred back to by this county board that we agreed to move forward with this in this statement.
And if those statements for committing to one watershed, one plan at some point in the future are not included, Bowser may not approve our extension. We'll have a county water plan that expires at the end of this year.
So just develop a water plan without?
And it takes 18 months.
Yeah. So
Why would it, I'm confused, why would it take 18, we have a current plan, and you just said
Correct.
all you have to do is update the executive summary and some other thing.
If this resolution and this letter gets sent to Bowser and they approve it, because we have an intent to move forward with one watershed, one plan sometime in the future. If we don't state that intent, then we have to do a complete water or county water plan for the area that excludes the route. So that'll be a lot more comprehensive. That'll be rewriting the whole plan.
I guess I don't follow that line of logic, but somebody, Mr. Fritz, you had-
I was just trying to get clarification
Yeah.
that, you answered the first part, which was that Bowser's basically giving us kind of
Ultimatum.
an ultimatum that if we don't do what's in that resolution, then we have to do the complete plan, which is going to take 18 months and more resources, right?
Correct.
And that's what you're saying. Now, I think what the confusion is, at least what I'm hearing is, what's the difference between what they're asking us to do and doing the complete plan? Why all of a sudden do we have to, what changes in the plan? I mean, it's the same water system, it's the same.
Well, with
the
a,
plan's so complicated to do and extend.
well, if you just do the county water plan for the areas of the county that are not in the route, it would be the plan that we have now. We won't have the modeling technologies to be able to do that we did in the route, to identify hot spots within the entire watershed. Like, these are the places that we need to focus to be able to get the outcomes that we need for water quality improvement and water quality protection. So if I update a county water plan, the way the water plan is right now, you lose that targeting specificity, and so you won't have the same caliber as you would with a watershed-based plan. I can certainly move forward with that.
Right, but why does it, so you're saying that you'd have to incorporate all that kind of modeling, and that's why it takes 18 months? But that's a choice, right? I'm not quite understanding why that's still the 18 months.
Well, we won't have those resources to do the county water plan. And if we do move forward with the county water plan, get it done, and it's fine, we're happy with it. Even if we have the county water plan, except for, and not the one watershed, one plan, by 2027, even if we have that, we're not going to be eligible for different grants. So,
Well, in 2027, though, I mean, the river, not the river, but the one water treatment plant will develop around us, and there'd be some time to discussing things. Well, I'm still not, so how much in resources do you think it would take to complete the water plan then if we don't have them internally under the scenario where
the county water plan?
Yeah, the county water plan, yeah.
It'll take about 18 months. It
Right.
takes meetings, it takes tapping into with the PCA and with state agencies, and just trying to vet with the residents of the county what they would like to see in their county water plan.
What would be the additional cost to the county?
Time.
Is it just your time, or is it
There's
outside
others.
consultants, or,
No, I wouldn't have the money for a consultant,
okay. So your time would be spent on that water plan for that 18 months is what you're saying?
right?
Okay.
Commissioner Palmer.
The question I had is, looking at the resolution and correspondence to Mr. Lenz, the way I'm viewing this, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's an initial measure of intent, but it's not a commitment.
Correct.
And so if you were to go with what we have here, it puts us on record as saying, well, we intend to do that, but we're not promising or committing ourselves to do that.
Correct.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, that was my point also. The one water, either plan helps us to organize our water resources and keep our groundwater safe and work with the people that are using water and people that are working with the water.
Our
Okay,
stakeholders, yeah.
so the thing about the one watershed, one plan is that the water doesn't know that there are county boundaries. So that system, that looks at the water areas as a system.
Yes.
And why would we plan for part of a system when we could take and plan for the whole system? So to me, we're not committing to anything. We're saying we're looking at this system-wide approach. We need to update our action plans and our implementation steps, and we'll continue to explore all the options.
The other question that I had was, would this be needlessly putting you through an extra 18 months worth of work that wouldn't be necessary under?
It could, definitely, yes.
Commissioner Jacob.
So, along the lines of getting the Root River plan to function as it should function, part of my belief is that the sooner we say, this is great, it's working super, let's state our intent that we want to extend that, I think it makes it less likely that money is going to come to Winona County. Right now, we've got $851,301 that we just approved on the resolution on 6.6. And of that, that's for 2 years, and then that goes to multiple counties. And is it only the $5,950? Is that all that's coming to? There's got to be more than $5,950 coming to Winona County out of that, doesn't there?
That's
Well,
just for administration.
No, there's just the part that's coming to Winona County.
But of the 851,301.
Some of that money is watershed-wide.
Yeah.
But the piece that's in, sorry to interrupt, but the piece that's in Winona County is only that small piece. The other projects are all within the other county.
We're 15% of it, or how much?
Yeah, about 11% of the root watershed is Winona County.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sheila, but the work plan that was laid out, all the different projects, when they funded those in this current grant that the board just approved, they all fell within a different county, but still within the Root River watershed.
Yeah.
The small piece, that 5,000 or whatever, ended up being apportioned to our county. They don't apportion those projects based on the percentage that were in the watershed. They do it based on wherever the project needs to be done. And that watershed mostly falls in a different county, and so therefore a lot of those projects are going to end up in that county. If it was a watershed that was more primarily and I think you already know this, but that's already in our county, in Winona County, it would, more of that money would be spent in Winona County if it was a different watershed.
But this
But
is,
you're right,
this
you're right.
is, this is misleading then. This is for staff support.
Right.
Well, yeah, but
So
it's
it's
not
no
actual project,
projects?
no.
There's another pot for projects.
That money, some of it's going to the Rush Pine Farmer-led Council. So that would be for support to that council and also for wellhead protection planning within the county. So, so that's what that is, and that overall budget for the One Watershed, One Plan for the route was approved by the policy committee.
So my concern is 851,000, and I'm only seeing 5,900 of that actually coming to Winona County. The sooner we say, this is great, sign us up for more, the less they're going to proportion money to Winona County. And that's a pittance of 851,000. And furthermore, none of that's for projects on the ground. And I understand the proportion, and I get all that, but I'm trying to hold Bowser accountable to Winona County. Say, hey, first of all, it's been a painstakingly long process as we started in 2013, 2014. It's been a long time. And to update our water plan at 18 months is insignificant compared to what it takes to develop the Root River 1-1 plan. That was a tremendous undertaking. We had the county attorney involved. How many counties, how many different SWCDs? It's not a simple, painless process to get into these 1-1 plans. So I'm just saying, we definitely want to do the right thing for the groundwater, for our environment. But I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot with funds coming our direction by signing up. I think that's the same reason Winona County SWCD said it was proposed there that let's move forward with the rest of Winona County, and they said let's wait. Olmsted County is saying we're only going to do one. We're going to see how that plays out, and Wabasha is doing the same thing. We're only going to do one. Let's see how that plays out. I'm saying the same thing. We've committed to Root River. We're doing our part. Let's go ahead and support that. Let's see how it plays out. And we can do the One Watershed, One Plan anytime. And I understand there's some resources that'll go into making a 18 months that'll go into a water plan, but we've done that how many times in the past? We've always had a county water plan. That's nothing new. Our county staff has done that. Every 5 years, every 10 years, you need a,
We can either do 5 or 10.
okay. So, and I'm definitely not saying no, never, we're never gonna do a collaboration with Olmsted County and Wabasha County. Olmsted has made it clear that this is very complex for them. They've got 3 watersheds that come together and over 16 different SWCD districts that play into that. All those have to be on the same page for these processes to move forward. It's complex.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, if I look at that $5,900, that's the amount that the group decided Winona County needed for its projects and for its
Right.
administration.
Correct.
And we have votes on that team, correct? We
It's the
voted,
policy committee.
right,
Well,
okay.
I'm sorry, yes, there is a policy committee, and it is Soil and Water District representatives, and I sit on that. But this is very much driven by staff, because we don't, as electeds, don't know these projects and what
And
the
since
costs.
we have low land mass, we have low representation.
Excuse me.
Right.
Excuse
So,
me.
I mean,
Okay,
you're
thank
right,
you.
and you're-
Thank you, Commissioner. So what we're looking at on the Whitewater, the Mississippi River Winona watershed, that is mostly within Winona County boundaries. So I think, and again, we have that same project council doing the planning and doing the agreeing. That's why the county attorney sat in on those sessions when she was needed. So we're just talking about a comprehensive planning process.
Correct.
That could be the way that we're going. So,
Yes.
Okay, Darrell Buck had some pertinent information to our discussion, I believe. Mr. Buck, good morning.
Morning. I just wanted a couple of clarifications. One, the SWCD board tabled the resolution for 1 year in April. I think it was in April, wasn't it? So they didn't say yes or no. They just tabled it for a year to, as you said, get a better feel for how the River One watershed's going. The other thing I wanted to clarify is the 5,900 is just to Winona County. The Winona SWCD is getting a bunch more money too. A lot of it for on the ground, some of it for, we're the fiscal agent for the grant, so we're getting paid to help run the grant also. So there's a lot more coming to the county, just not to Winona County, but to Winona SWCD and our landowners.
How much would that be, and
I
what
don't
kind,
remember the dollar
and
amount.
it's for on-the-ground fixes?
Some of it's for on the ground. I had all the numbers at our board meeting last month or the month before, I don't remember which. But I did bring them with today, but I believe it was 40-some% is going on the ground. There's another pretty good percentage that isn't going on the ground, but it's specifically for soil health technician and nutrient management technician. And that isn't cost share for on the ground, but it's really, it does go on the ground because you're working with the landowners to teach them how to do things differently as far as their farming operation.
Are you the fiscal agent for the entire 1-1?
Yes.
For the Red River.
So all the way over into Mower County?
Yep,
We're the fiscal agent for that. They do the work.
So that's
We
partly
handle the money
where
and
some of your funds are coming in for staffing, is because now you're managing water out in Mower County.
We're managing the funds for them, not the project, but the funds.
So that money's not parlaying into any projects or many projects in Winona County. Yeah.
Commissioner Plummer.
The question I'd have, Sheila, is that if we weren't going to go with the language that you've proposed, would that preclude us in the future from grants that could be used for practices on the ground?
Possibly, yes. So if we do the changes that were suggested, I'm not sure if the intent for making a more streamlined water plan update was with the understanding that, yes, we will move into one watershed, one plan, just not right now.
And if I could follow up, this funding is all, I believe, is based on legislation.
Correct.
Okay, we will have a change in legislation this fall. We will have a new administration. Governor Dayton was very high his on water quality. I don't think the concern for water quality is going to totally go away, but the legislature has the authority to fund these things at different levels. Will that change? It's a possibility.
It's a statute.
We don't know, but statutes can change, and legislative bodies will change. So we may see a change. And you're talking out to 2023. I mean, I can't imagine what's going to happen in 2023, let alone, next year type of thing.
Well,
and the frustration, I think part of our frustration here is that, we have three. It's not, for Winona County, it's not one watershed, one plan. It's three. Well, two, but now, so, I'm sorry, on your little map here, we just did that La Crescent.
Right.
But we just did last meeting the La Crescent, Mississippi, but that's just is that little dotted line?
That's to identify strategies for watershed protection and restoration. That's a PCA, that's their watershed approach. And I might add, right now, if we move forward with one watershed, one plan, the La Crescent would be tied in with the Mississippi River Winona. They would be treated as one planning area. Just like in the route, the Reno and the Upper Iowa was added to that one.
So on your little map then, so I can see it, is this whole white area the Mississippi, because that's going to Dodge, Olmsted?
Yes, it includes Olmsted, Wabasha, Winona, and then the La Crescent extends into Houston County.
So that whole little white area would be one watershed, one plan. And as Commissioner Jacob pointed out, that's many, many partners again. Okay, Commissioner.
And I might add too, the PCA, when they initially started the watershed approach for assessing and monitoring all of the watersheds in the state, the Winona County, the Mississippi Winona watershed they started the RAPS process, and that's all completed and everything. The La Crescent started in 2015, so they're behind. That's what that grant was for, to try and get it caught up. But in the next monitoring and assessing cycle for Southeast Minnesota, that includes, I think it's 2022, they will start monitoring all over again. They tied in the La Crescent watershed with the Winona watershed because it made more sense instead of tying the La Crescent with the Reno. And that's the cycle it was on before. So they're adjusting the cycle a little bit.
Where does all that water go?
This all goes to the Mississippi.
It all ultimately goes to the
Exactly.
Okay. Commissioner Palmer.
Okay, so I'm really respectful of what everyone's had to say on this, and I take it to heart. Where I'm having a problem is that you got a proposal in front of us that would be essentially an initial letter of intent, but not a commitment.
Yes.
That letter, and you can pull out any time. So that letter of intent basically would make us eligible for on-the-ground kind of fixes in the future.
And grants, yes.
And grants in the future. Whereas if we didn't do this, we may not be eligible for those grants.
Correct.
For things that have to be done. So where I'm a little baffled is I don't see the downside of this. I see upside, but I don't see downside. I mean, if we basically take a path where we decide that we're going to be ineligible for on-the-ground work, I think we've shot ourselves in the foot.
Commissioner Jacobs.
So the assumption is that one watershed, one plan is going to come to fruition throughout the state. That's the assumption you're making. And I have been at political meetings where they've discussed, if I'm elected, the first thing that's going is a 1-1 program. So you're assuming, so for what Sheila's saying to be true, that we would be eligible, that's making the assumption that the rest of the state is going to be fully on board. And I haven't seen that from certainly Olmsted County. They've talked to me about plenty of complexities. Sure. And the other thing where I think financially we could be ahead is by saying, we're not saying no by not going with the language he has proposed. We're saying, wait, but prove to us how good it works. So send more money to the Root River, and then the Root River One Watershed One plan that we've already committed to and that we're involved in, and then maybe we'll sign on to these other watersheds that they want us to. So I'm thinking we would be farther ahead financially by just not putting it in high gear and moving ahead.
And I respect what you're saying, and, you know, I guess what I'd have to say is with the legislature, and I know there will probably be some turnover this year, is that, you know, you can't always bank on what you think going into a legislative session at all. And so let's say the political folks that you know are successful in basically deciding 1-1 is gone. There's still no downside for us to just give our motion of intent, because again, it's not a commitment. But let's say they aren't successful. I think a lot of the money water management money is going to go to the watersheds, and that's where we want to be positioned to get the money for practices on the ground.
And Bowser's funding.
Am I wrong on this?
No, you're not. Bowser's funding, you know, they have their pot of money that they have for grants.
Right.
And then they have the pot of money for the One Watershed, One Plan implementation. And as the funds get dispersed for the One Watershed, One Plan implementations, those go up, but for the grant funding goes down. So we're having less and less funding. And that's how Bowser is right now. There are other grants, but or other funding sources, but that's how the Bowser funding is transit. So each year, less money in the pot for grants, competitive grants, and more money for the One Watershed, One Plan areas.
There'd be less discretionary money and
Yes.
more of it geared to the watershed plan.
Correct.
I think one of the big frustrations, I know Commissioner Jacob and I have served on a number of water representing the county, and one of my big frustrations is the amount of dollars we spend on studying, writing these plans and everything. And I would really like to, and I have talked to different legislators and everything, is put X number of dollars to practices on the land versus just studying it. Because I would ask Sheila, because I think you've been part of this, how many millions of dollars did the Whitewater watershed get over the last, I mean, they've gotten
It's been a lot, Ben.
They've gotten
566.
millions. They've gotten millions of dollars, and I think we're seeing some improvements. But then when you make a statement that we have to go through and we don't have all those resources, we got all that data. I mean, we don't need to recreate the data. So how much time and do we spend as a state and a nation studying water and collecting data versus getting the practices on the land?
I completely understand, and I guess what I'm thinking is that maybe they have not looked at this holistically from the whole watershed management point of view in the past. They've looked at various on-the-ground fixes for here, there, and maybe everywhere, but they've never been viewed in total as to how one affects the other. And I think
that's a whole other study.
Well, no, but and yeah, I mean, we don't want to see so much money put into study that you're not going to have the work on the ground. I guess the hope that I have is maybe this is what they really actually needed in order to deal with it holistically.
Commissioner Kavesi.
The purpose of the comprehensive planning in the One Watershed, One Plan is to identify the hotspots. Okay, so that's
Yes.
targeting.
So you're targeting.
Yes,
And you're
rather than
identifying.
saying who wants $50,000 to do this or
Right.
up to $75,000 to do this. So, I do respect what people are saying, and you can plan to death, but I think we're at the point of comprehensive planning and targeted results. And so therefore, when you spend the money, you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck.
That is the general idea behind that, yes.
Sorry, Mr. Buck.
Commissioner Jacob.
So, flip side of targeting certain hotspot areas is that in the past, the program has been all willing participants. So if my farm, anyone's farm has a spot that has a erosion issue, they're eligible. Now, if you're not in their targeted area, you're not eligible. So do we have enough? Do we have enough willing participants in the targeted area? And what about the people who are not in the targeted area? I mean, they're not going to be able to get money through the 1-1 plan. And I think maybe the little bit harder part for me with Bowser coming forward with the 1-1 plan and originally, will you support the pilot, which we did, and it was, my intent was to see how it plays out, which we're doing, but they're kind of making it clear that either everyone's gonna do the 1-1 plan, or you're not gonna get money. So was it ever really willing participation? I mean, I don't hear any other options from staff or anyone else other than that you're gonna do this and you're gonna like it.
Is it reasonable to conclude that the 1-1 water plan will completely crowd out other fixes on the farm in non-targeted areas like he's mentioning?
There's only so many dollars.
I don't know. Well, like Commissioner Ward said, dollars are limited, and I think the idea is that we have a limited resource of how much money can be spent. So let's put those dollars where they make the most bang for your buck, I guess.
But there still would be the other SWCD programs, correct?
Yes, they get a capacity funding to do those.
That was my point, was that.
It's a little amount, yes.
We would still have, but we would still have the staff to be able to work directly
Yes.
with the local farmers or the
Yes.
local.
Really talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Me?
Wow, it's going to be good for targeted areas, but at the same time, there's money for non-targeted areas. I mean, if the intent of the plan is to find targeted areas.
Well, I'm just asking.
Yeah, well, the intent of the plan is to go to targeted areas.
Yeah, the idea is to prioritize and target and then be able to measure those results. And that's what a part of One Watershed, One Plan is, to be able to do that holistically at a watershed scale.
I'm going to make a motion to adopt the resolution as written without paragraph 4 and the letter as written without paragraph 3. See where it goes.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the resolution with deleting paragraph 3 in the letter on page 69 and the fourth whereas on page 70. So, discussion. Or
You have
do
to
we
have
have
a
a
second.
second? Do we have a second? I'll second it for discussion. Okay, so I have a question. No, I'm sorry. Is it good questions?
Could I ask Ms. Qualley, could you provide us your recommendation on this issue?
Commissioners, thank you. Well, at this point, because the Pollution Control Agency and the Board of Water and Soil Resources is moving toward a watershed planning approach, grant orientation and the future, the way things are right now, of course, none of us can predict the future, appears that the watershed approach is where, sort of follow the money, follow where these agencies are taking us, because it may be voluntary, but if that's where the funding for on-the-ground practices, as evidenced by the recent Root River grant that will be administered by the SWCD, it appears that moving in this direction is where most of us are going to have to go. So,
And then Sheila, if I could just ask you, so given the motion that Commissioner Jacob has just made, I want to make sure we're considering all the options here.
Correct.
Do you feel that would have any negative implications with respect to your submittal?
Well, I could certainly submit it and find out what Bowser does with it. But if they say, no, not good enough, you need to have stated some kind of intent, then I would have to do a full update to the water plan for the portion of the county that's outside of the route. If I do that, I'm reluctant to move forward with One Watershed, One Plan until after 2023, because that wouldn't make sense to spend time and resources to do an update for one watershed plan, or one water plan, and then turn around the next year and do One Watershed, One Plan for that portion of the county plus the Winona or Wabasha, Olmsted, and Houston County. And that would be, I guess I'd be reluctant to do two watershed, a water plan and then a watershed plan back to back.
You believe that that omission of that one sentence in the resolution then would have negative implications going forward, or do you feel that it would be neutral?
Well, when I did the draft resolution, I submitted it to Bowser for review, and they actually inserted that phrase.
They did, meaning staff at Bowser or the Bowser board?
Staff. The Bowser board hasn't seen this. This is staff.
Okay, we have AMC, Association of Minnesota Counties, does have representation on the Bowser board. It's Rich Svay, of course, he lives right on the shores of Lake Superior, but he is our AMC representative on the board. So I guess I haven't had any discussion with him in regards to what the board's thinking is on this.
Would it be reasonable in your mind to submit it as amended by Commissioner Jacob and find out what their response is to that?
That would be reasonable.
And if you find out that the response is negative, that you could bring it back for further consideration?
That would be fine.
Would that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
By that, I mean, if they indicate that, we're not viewed as an active participant, you will let us know and then reconsider this. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I have a discussion.
Yes.
I'm not in favor of the motion as it stands. It's an intent, not a commitment with the current language, and the implication of removing that would be that our water resource person would be committed to a plan that I'm not sure that that additional plan would be approved. So I would be in favor of the current language because it's an intent and it keeps our water resource person from being tied up on additional planning.
Oh, boy.
Okay, well, we have the discussion, I guess, is to ask Ms. Harms to submit it as the motion states. If there's any negative feedback from Bowser or the Bowser board, then we can retake action. As you can see from this map, there's a whole lot of the state of Minnesota that hasn't, I'm sorry for better language, bought into this concept.
Right.
I mean, so we're, again, if
It's not like we're behind. We're already half in with our Root River. I mean, we're ahead of most of these counties.
Right. And I've said this before, Fillmore and Houston have the luxury of, of course, Fillmore is 100% in one, so they are all gung-ho on this, How can you not be? I mean, you're getting more money and they're paying and everything because they're is totally in one plan. They have an ideal. Most every other county, I think, is somewhat split. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of these northern counties and such have not, it's not as high a priority for them.
But if we remove this language, then we're committing our water resource person to do a plan that may not be necessary.
Well,
No, we're going to see how they respond.
Yeah, but
If
part of
the
their
cert-
response would lead us to committing her to do that additional planning.
And we can decide if we wanted to resubmit it with this language.
that would be fine. But right now, if they accept the letter and the resolution as amended or with the suggested changes, if they accept that, then my water plan update would be what I mentioned earlier, updating the executive summary and the action items.
Right, but the other planning that you would have to do is comprehensive.
Process.
Excuse me, it's comprehensive. Yes.
Right.
Okay. And the timeline gets extended when you do that kind of comprehensive planning. Okay.
Right.
Thank
So it allows
you.
me to do one watershed, one plan.
I
If
guess
the
what I'm
board wants
looking
me to do
here
that.
I'm looking for a little harmony, I think if we're going to do anything, it'd be nice if we could do it with a solid vote, especially with it being implied that, if there is a negative indication from your folks that you have to submit this to, that you can bring it back and and we can reconsider with the original language. Is that what you're indicating? Okay.
That would be fine.
I do have a question, Mr. Bucks in the audience. Is Mr. Jansky by chance coming to the county fair for a soil and water? I know he has maybe in the past.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay, all right, thank you. That would have been an opportunity to quiz the director of the Bowser organization. Okay, Commissioner Olson.
Just one thought on this. Well, several thoughts, but I'll articulate one. They added that little bit of info, that sentence in there. So it seems that they will approve this as submitted if it's submitted as written, based on the fact that they put the language in there. And Commissioner Jacob is saying, well, if it does get rejected, we'll come back and revisit it as it was written. Why wouldn't we just submit it as written? Is my take on it. I'm not going to support the motion.
The question I have is, I'm sorry, was there conversation, or was it just a letter come back saying, hey, you need to put this in? What was the conversation? Okay, so you were privileged to that conversation. Unfortunately, none of us were privileged to that conversation. Was anybody else privileged to that conversation? It was just, so who at Bowser indicated that?
Adam Bialke is our board representative. And in discussion with him, he says you need to have something in there to say that, no, you're not. If the intent is with one watershed, one plan, no, we don't want to do this ever, okay, then we have this course where we have to do a complete water plan update. If the answer...
Saying that.
Right. Well, if the intent is, hey, we would like to do it at some point, but just not now when our plan is expiring, well, then you need to have that kind of a statement in there that we want to move forward with one watershed, one plan, just not now.
I'm suggesting we don't say either.
Well, I guess the one thing I'm thinking is that it is just a measure of intent without any commitment, without any substantial agreement on it, where if we don't like the way things are going, we can just pull.
Yes.
Simply probably by notifying them by letter. I guess I'm going back to my original thoughts on it, and as you can tell, I've been a couple different directions today, unfortunately. I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying that, well, this would be our intent, but if things change, it's not going to be. And that can be simply done at any time.
Correct.
Is this board, other than a rubber stamp to Bowser, if Bowser's going to actually tell us what we're going to put in the letter, tell us what's coming with one watershed, one plan, telling us how we're going to participate. We've been, for me, going above my comfort zone all throughout the Root River 1-1 plan to see how it plays out. And I've said right from, it was kind of almost used against us early on. Well, you supported this. Well, I voted to move it forward so we could see how it plays out. And I'm still on that page. I want to see how we get along with Olmsted and Wabasha counties. And I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes. I just want the letter to be neutral, and I want it to be written by us, not by Bowser.
I guess what I'm thinking on it is that even by doing this, we are able to see how the one watershed is going to work out. We have the time and we have the vision, and we know and understand what's going to be going on there. We're going to be hearing about it all the time. And I'd say that there's probably a real good period of time over the next year or so, or two, where we're going to have a very good understanding of that before we have to actually do anything concrete here. Mm-hmm. Except for, like you said, the council, the Farmer Council and the Utica Wellhead.
Correct.
But other than that, we're not really committed to anything else. I mean, it's to me, this is just a letter to say, hey, right now we have the intent, but we'll see how it goes.
Right.
That's all we're really saying.
Commissioner Kavesi.
That was most of my comments. I don't feel that we're rubber stamping what any other agency is telling us. we've given this extensive discussion. We've respected each other's opinions. But, we do this carefully with all of our water issues. And, I feel that we need to work with some of the agencies and not, I just feel that we need to, it doesn't harm anything to leave it the way it is. It doesn't commit us to anything. And that therefore I think we should leave it as it is. Are we ready to vote?
Well, I have a question. Is there any way we can change, just saying in that fourth bullet point, committed and with watershed partners as they transition into future programs or something versus committing, I don't know, committing this into the one watershed, one plan. Staff at a state level and a local level they are committed to this. And I know when we do actions here, there's other areas in county government where, well, the board said this 20 years ago, and that's my driving mission. So as long as Sheila's in this position and Kay's in this position and Daryl's in their position, they've heard the discussion here today that we're not totally on board with everything. And I do personally feel it's pretty much mandated to us. If a staff person told our staff person, you got to put this in there, I don't see that as huge statewide buy-in to this program.
Well, and I think you could probably reflect that by virtue of an instruction to our minutes, because everybody looks at historical intent. Mm-hmm. And with this issue, with Heidi and with Heidi Hunt and with our administrator, there can be a proviso in the minutes to indicate that while this was approved as an intent, it's made without any current commitment at this time.
Yes, I think,
and staff needs to understand that, because again, I go back, there's some staff that something got passed 20 years ago and they're still working underneath that.
There's nothing wrong with staff, I think, working with these folks. I think the question is, I'd hate to see us go through another 18-month plan, that you have to do. I'm sure you've got enough to do already. But I just don't think there's any harm.
How much of that plan couldn't you say duplicate?
Well, true. And the other thing is, we talk about Bowser. Well, Bowser is going to be controlling a lot of the purse strings on this. And, if we just basically tell Bowser that, we're not interested, we may as well say we're not interested in their money either.
Well, and could we ever at some point put a whereas in this, that any future programming, planning, and everything have a specific on-the-ground application percentage?
Well,
that's one of my big bugs, is that we're spending, in the one watershed, one plan, I sat there, and we gave a consultant over $200,000 to come up with a plan. And so if every one of these across the state of Minnesota spends that kind of money, that's a lot of money that could have, guy wants to put in landowner wants to put in a pond or waterways or berms or something. That's a lot of work on the ground. And when we spend that kind of money putting plans together, it's problematic. I would really like to see any state agency always have a boots on the ground component to any grants or funding sources.
Well, this is new,
but they've been doing this for years.
I do understand that. I understand Mr. Jacobs' concerns as well. I really do.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, I understand the concerns that have been raised. We're considering a planning process, and I consider all of the board's discussion similar to the discussion that happens at the Planning and Zoning Committee in regards to a CUP recommendation. So obviously we've heard each other, we've listened to each other, and obviously staff has heard the different points of view. So I think, it seems to me that this discussion is not in vain. Any of the points that have been raised are going to be taken into consideration. So to me, it's time to vote. I don't know.
Okay, the motion that we're voting on, though, is to delete, is it the whole paragraph 3?
On the letter.
On the letter, and the fourth whereas.
And to approve, yeah,
Yeah.
to approve what Sheila has presented without those two statements.
What if, maybe it's a bad time to suggest it, but
Go ahead.
what if we just made a change to that fourth paragraph on the resolution
Resolution.
to indicate that Winona County is tentatively committed to effective coordination? Or Winona County intends to be an active partner. Take out the word committed.
Okay, intends.
Do that.
Which basically does bring it to, I think, the level that we're all kind of thinking.
And you would keep paragraph three
Well,
in the letter?
Oh, yeah, well, for paragraph 3, Winona County
Delete
It
that
says
last sentence.
intends
It says we intend.
to work collaboratively. Instead of will work, we'll say intends to work collaboratively.
Well, I mean, we feel, obviously, we don't all feel, we all feel differently.
Right.
So to say we feel,
But
that may be a little strong.
But it does firm up the idea that it's presently our intent, not commitment.
So again, back on the paragraph then, what word were you changing?
On the
Once
paragraph,
amended, word is
in the
complete.
first sentence, right after Winona County, I would say intends and strike will.
Oh, intends to work, okay.
Intends to, yeah.
Okay, so,
So
Commissioner Jacob,
I could accept the rest of that, but I can't live with the last sentence in the third paragraph. We feel the most responsible and efficient way to manage our local water resources is through the combined efforts and planning of a watershed-wide management plan as proposed in the One Watershed, One Plan process.
And that's
I'm
my
still-
sentence.
I'm still trying to,
strike
that's
that.
what,
How do you feel about that,
I
Sheila?
can take
strike
it
it?
out, yeah.
okay,
then the rest of it I could live with.
okay, so do I have a friendly amendment?
Maybe it would be cleaner if we withdrew and started fresh
Would you be willing to withdraw the current motion, Commissioner?
in favor of the motion that will be subsequent to this.
Yeah, as long as no one jumps in with something new, entirely different.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I'll support that, so now,
So I would move.
a new motion.
To,
So, I'm sorry, we have to vote on
Oh.
withdrawing. All those in
no, you
favor?
don't, do you?
Withdrawing a motion? We have to- What's the, I don't
No,
remember.
if
Or
there's
if
nothing
it's
to
just-
vote on.
Okay, all right, okay, all right.
Um,
Let us get hung up on process here.
So I would move
Process.
to amend the third paragraph of the letter from Sheila Harms to Ed Lenz. In the first sentence, after the word Winona County, to strike the word will and replace it with intends to, and to eliminate the last sentence in that paragraph altogether. And on the resolution,
Whereas,
Winona County is Winona County.
intent.
Intends to be an active partner to effective coordination.
I'm, oh, wrong paragraph, thanks.
Yeah, just-
Thank you so much. Okay, intends,
Intends,
yep.
and you could cross out intends effective coordination, so you could cross out committed and to. Does that make sense?
Intends to be an active partner to effective coordination, is that what we're saying?
Intends to, and strike out committed and. Intends to be,
An active partner.
Yep.
To effective coordination.
and
of
take
water
out committed and the word and.
Okay, does everybody understand the,
I don't see and in there.
Why delete the word and? You mean at the end of that whereas?
Whereas Winona County intends to be an active partner.
And,
To
okay,
effective
I thought you meant the word "and" after.
Oh, no.
All right.
Think you can work with this, Sheila?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody clear on the language?
Motion?
That was a motion.
Okay, and, well, the
Second.
language, we
Oh,
have a
I'm
motion.
sorry. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy. Did you second?
Yes.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Olson. Any further discussion?
One thing, on the fourth from the bottom paragraph, I think there's a typographical error. Whereas Winona County commits to continuous implementation, shouldn't that be continued implementation?
Continue.
Fix that.
Okay. All right. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, carries with those corrections.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now,
Thank you, Sheila.
Sheila, before you go away, so the One Watershed, One Plan has local elected sitting on the policy, as you have indicated. So where do we need representatives for anything going forward at this point in time, or there's no coordination?
No.
Because, again, as I commented before, a lot of this is staff-driven, and a lot of stuff is handed to the electeds to make decisions with that information. So at any point, if there is opportunity for electeds to be part of these processes or these meetings, I think that would be to our advantage. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we get to item number 7.1, discuss, determine funding level for SEMSHA, another fun topic. Joe, Buffy, good morning.
Morning.
Buffy Bryant, current Deputy Director of SEMSHA.
And do you want to make an announcement, or it's not official?
Well, it's not official, but our SEMSHA board has hired me as their Executive Director pending contract negotiations.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
So you're dealing with the boss, the new to-be boss.
Correct.
The director. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will say that the board is 100% supportive of Buffy taking over Mr. Wheeler's position. She's shown very good leadership and accuracy in her reporting and her dynamics, and I think,
Always has.
yeah, I think we'll be in good shape.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Joe has typically done the introductions for these, so, and I'm typically a PowerPoint presentation person, so I'm going to lead you through pages 86 through 91 of your packet. And I'm just going to highlight some things in there. I'm assuming you've read through these, you probably have some questions. After listening to the last discussion, I was actually going to change the recommendation, but I think I'm going to leave it just the same to discuss and determine the SEMSHA levy. There is one component of this levy request that deserves some discussion, and I know Commissioner Ward has seen the request for the housing trust funds come forward through the SEMSHA board. However, this board has not seen the guidelines and the tactical plans that have been developed in Goodhue County and the city of Red Wing. So because you haven't seen that, I'm not going to ask for, I was going to ask for an intent to move forward and consider developing that this year. But since you haven't seen that at this point, I'm not going to request that. So that's more of an educational component for you. I'm going to give you just a few highlights. Part of our presentation and request is to let you know what do we do with the money you gave us in the prior year. And some of the struggles that we have as a housing authority is the changing dynamics in housing. And Minnesota Housing Partnership puts out a either a district or a county-wide housing study. And there's just some interesting dynamics that they reported in 2017. And I think that has been shared with you in the past. But what we're seeing is rents overall are decreasing, incomes are declining. Rents are up 4% through 2015, and income is down by 19%. So it's really pulling a pull on the clientele that we serve. There's roughly 19,000 households in Winona County, and roughly 4,700 of those households are paying more than 30% of their income for rent and housing cost. When you see that, those individuals are facing, do I buy groceries or do I pay for housing? So some of that basic needs, and those are the types of individuals that we're dealing with on a daily basis. Again, these statistics go back to 2015. From a home ownership perspective, house values have risen about 16%. And I think if we looked at that now, especially in Winona County, we'd see those housing values even higher, where income levels of homeowners have declined about 2%. So again, we're still seeing that pull there on incomes. So again, when we're talking about the low-income households that we serve, it's about 25% of the total community of that population. In terms of programs that SEMTRA has, I'm just going to kind of go through that first letter that's dated, that's on page 986, 87. Section 8 Rental Assistance Program. It's a federal program. We serve about 70 households in Winona County. That's out the out county of Winona. We don't service the city of Winona. The city of Winona has their own housing authority. We serviced about 70 households, and we provided about $4,400 per year to each of those households, or we brought in about $304,000 of federal money to the county. In 2016, we refinanced the Lewiston projects. That came forward to the county board. A couple of components in there. We decreased the amount that we have to levy each year from $30,000 down to $15,000, but we also took out about $800,000 in equity to do improvements. Those improvements will be concluded here this year. Most of those are exterior and some mechanical work that has been done. So we're assuming by about the middle of August that will be completed. The second item is the Lewiston Small Cities Development Program. This is really an amazing program. I don't know if anybody heard Karen Ducharme and myself on the radio last week. We talked a little bit about this program and the partnerships between the cities and the counties. And again, that last discussion on the watershed, from an operational level, we're seeing the competitiveness of getting that grant money back here. It's money that's gonna go somewhere in the state, but to get it back here, we really have to be on our toes and knowing what the competitors are doing. So that may be a question that could be on your minds is, well, what, this is a city-specific thing, but why do we need the county? We need to have that leverage, not only it's because that's what the competitors are doing. And I'm fearful that if we don't have that county support, we won't be competitiveness and we won't get those grants. I'll come back to that point in a moment. But in Lewiston, we leveraged both county city funds there. We brought in about $235,000 in housing rehab. We rehabbed about 14 homes. All of those funds are now committed. We also did rental rehab. Through the state program, through DEED, which is really federal funds, we leveraged about $120,000, and then on top of that, brought in another $300,000 of state money through MHFA. So that was a lot of money to that community.
Can I ask one brief question?
Sure.
In the Lewiston program, you're talking about the houses that have been rehabilitated, and then you say 2 are in construction. Do you mean that they're being worked on?
They're being worked on. They're not being built. They're not building new houses.
Okay.
Rehabbing.
Fixing.
Fixing. Yep, preserving. We also receive an allocation for first-time home buyer money. Again, this year it was about 1.2. We've committed about 75% of those funds this year in 2018 already. It goes and it goes fast, and usually there's unused funds in other counties, and then that money is reallocated and we can use that back here. So, and we're usually pretty fortunate enough that we can do that. Just in terms of some of our SEMTRA properties and a little bit about what we did last year, we have 56 Semtra-owned units in Winona County. 62 households were served. That means that there would have been flips of those units. So we served 62 families in those 56 units. 41 of those families had average incomes of about $15,500. So again, just trying to give you the perspective of who we're serving within the community. So 56 units. In 2017-18, we were approached by a nonprofit that wanted to get out of the business of housing in the city of Winona and the city of Red Wing. And this was an opportunity for Semtra, who does not operate in those, to actually partner with those cities. And we were able to preserve housing. It's Section 8 project-based housing. It's Wabasha Apartments out on Pelsner and 5th. I believe, here, and then Cooper Ridge in Red Wing. Semtra helped facilitate that preservation. Semtra manages those units, but they do not own those units. And we're working with that entity to bring in about $300,000 for that, for Wabasha Apartments, again, state funding back here. The next item that's bolted in that letter is the Winona Housing Trust Fund. This is, I'm going to say this is an opportunity, and I think this is something that the board should consider. It's an opportunity for funding. What we have learned from experience is it takes time to set up a housing trust fund. Goodhue County Board approved last year $100,000 in the creation of a housing trust fund. We are I'm going to say 60% of the way through actually establishing that. The county board sets up a committee. They develop a set of guidelines for the housing trust fund. Then they select a tactical committee, and the tactical committee decides how those funds will be used and how those funds will be reported on back to the board. It's a little bit different than some of the other programs that Semtra has and that relationship that Semtra has with the county board. Depending on what you feel is the need, if it's gap financing for programs, or if it's homelessness, or if it's first-time home buyer, you can use those funds through that tactical plan to decide how you want those funds to be used. When I say this is an opportunity, it doesn't mean that it has to be funding from the county board. But we need the county board to help us set up this trust fund. It could be an opportunity for state funding. There's been talk that the legislature for the last 2 years was going to have some matching funds available. So if employers or if boards or cities wanted to contribute to that fund, the state would match that dollar for dollar up to $100,000. Again, this is an opportunity, and I think it's something that should be considered because of the length of time that it takes to set this up. And I honestly did not, and I didn't think it would take us that long to get through the committees and the time and to actually do that. The other thing that I'd encourage you.
But we're not going to discuss that today because we don't really have the background as a board to.
Correct. I would agree with that statement.
We can work with Goodhue County to see how it's played out in their county.
Exactly. Great segue. I'm an advocate of seeing how things work first and proving those successes, and if it's successful and Semtra can actually operationalize that and develop that program, bring in, leverage some funds, then why not do it here? I just would encourage that we consider in 2018 looking at creating that. So at some point coming back forward, once you have that information, to actually look at creating that housing trust fund.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. South Fork addition, we are down to 8 multifamily lots and 20 acres to sell and 1 single family lot out there. So I'm going to now flip to page 89 of your packet, which is the levy request for 2019. Total levy request is $105,400. Since 2013, we have been funded at $100,000. The uses of those funds are really broken into 3 distinct categories. One for general fund expenditures, second for housing developments, and the third for community development. And I'll talk about each one of those specifically. The general fund request of $50,400, you may be asking the question, well, Joe's leaving. Why isn't that amount going down? We've had some, in a couple of reasons. Actually, there's several factors. There are some operational factors where we had some programs that are no longer there, and we need to subsidize them for the interim. It's kind of that we've got a state-run program that's not there. We're going to need to get some of that money back, and we're going to need to fund that in the short term so we can get that back before we make other staffing choices. We also have an increased audit cost. When we have staff leaving, believe it or not, when you charge staff out to programs, the general fund actually earns money back on that. Now, with not charging money back out, that money is not coming back to the general fund, so there is a decrease in revenue. We've done some extreme streamlining at Semtra, which has also decreased some of the revenue for administrative costs coming in because we're doing copying. We're not charging back for some of our copy expenses. Those two items alone are about $12,000. The audit increase costs, we're out in RFP now. We're seeing probably about an increase of $15,000 there. And the loss of the two programs that we won't be administrating in 2019 is about $60,000 in total. I am anticipating that there will be a savings, a noticeable savings in 2020. In 2018, when we budgeted, we didn't budget for the increase in my replacement. So there's an increase this year. So it's like, why aren't we seeing the sudden drop? So there's the increase this year. We're utilizing reserves for that transition year, and then now we're back on that playing field. Joe is not planning to retire until March 31st, so we have a little bit of his time in 2019 as well. So that's why you're not seeing that decrease there. There are some other components too where there were some loans being made to our Section 8 program. That program has seen some dramatic decreases in administrative dollars. That program will break even now as well. The housing developments, I'm not going to talk a whole lot in detail. Those are kind of standard. Those are commitments that boards prior to you made in terms of the Lewiston the Lewiston projects for both Greenview and Parkview. That's the special benefit tax levy, and the South Fork St. Charles TIF debt service reserve funding there. I would just make a note again, maybe it's more of a plug for that housing trust fund. By creating that, it does not require you to make ongoing levy support. So again, it's an opportunity out there. The $10,000 community development grant match, we are applying for a grant, a small cities grant for the city of Goodview. We have met with them just last week. No, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago we met with the mayor and with the city administrator, and we will be applying for a grant there in 2018, 2019 time period. Again, in order for this grant to be competitive, we'll be asking for all the money that we possibly can there. We'll be asking for both commercial and rental in the tune of total funding of about $1 million. That's our goal, is to bring that amount back in. So we're asking the county, the city, we're asking $5,000, and we're asking the county for $10,000. The last item there is the Winona County Housing Development. Last year, the board approved $13,000 for this line item. Actually, it would have been netted out to probably about 11 by the time the final levy came through. We utilized those funds for two key things. One, for the South Fork feasibility, so we could get that 20 acres ready to go and to sell. And second, for the Wapasaw development and preserving that housing. Again, it's that partnership that we had with the city and with Semtra. The other item that this was really kind of a unique opportunity. We are an administrator for the RRDL program. It's a revolving loan program through Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. as part of that, we have to work with private landlords, and we had a landlord that was having some, believe it or not, some vacancy issues. And we utilized our Section 8 program and to try to help that landlord through a workout plan so that he could be eligible for up to $300,000. The state first said, nope, we're not funding him, vacancy's too high. SEMSHA did a workout plan. We just were notified last week that the state's relooking at that. So again, that's another aspect where we could use that $5,000, either in vouching and or staffing to develop those workout plans. Pages 90 and 91 are all the details, line items of the specific overhead budget. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Questions? Buffy?
Maybe one question. So I understand the St. Charles South for debt service better. If those projects are coming to fruition and more of those lots are sold, isn't there a reduction in debt service?
We were able to negotiate with the bank a very low interest loan, and it was re-amortized out. We are hopeful, especially if we sell that 20 acres, that at some point that $25,000 will either decrease. I don't think at this point in time it will go away because it took us so long to build that out. We needed that money there to be able to repay that portion. It will be dependent on the amount of TIF that we're collecting on that. So those TIF payments will have to be able to make that full bond service payment.
See, there's TIF and our contribution to that.
So how long is left on those bonds?
I'm going to say it's about 15 years left to that. I don't know precisely, but I can follow up.
Okay. No, that's okay.
It was a very long-term project.
Longer term than anticipated.
Yes,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because things changed, the market changed and everything.
It was anticipated that you would fund it for $25,000 up to the 1-year debt service amount, and that would be it. And the market tanked, and yeah.
And hopefully the market's coming
The market has
back.
come back around.
Right, and there is more interest because of the Mayo, the Rochester Olmsted Destination Medical Center. People are finding housing out further and further from Rochester because of the cost of housing there, so.
And we're hopeful with the money that we invested in that feasibility study last year that potentially then we'd have a developer to come in and develop that, not SEMSHA, another private developer.
That is there is somewhat of a shift there, and that, in my opinion, that's the way we should be doing, is the private sector should be building these and not SEMSHA having to put houses up. Any other questions? This is early in the game for budgeting and everything. Are we asked to take action today to set a preliminary, or is this just information going forward in our whole budgeting scheme plan?
This is a separate levy, right?
It is.
So
Right.
we get, I mean, it's not, doesn't really factor into the overall budget, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's
You provided the resolution, so
Yes.
you're ready.
this is separate from our budget
Yes,
process.
it is, but it's not separate from our taxpayers, so I
Right,
mean,
right.
yeah,
So
yes,
there's a-
right, we have
yeah,
no,
Yeah, so it's like you're dealing really with two different budgets.
Right.
I guess that's what's.
But it's not a line item on the tax statement.
No.
yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, on your
Oh,
tax
yeah.
statement, well, not
Oh,
yours.
yeah,
'cause
ours
you
is
live
Port
in-
Authority, okay.
Right,
If you live in
you're
the- right, if you live in
So
the
there is
city,
a
it's-
line item at the very bottom of the tax statement that says house HRA
And it's
levy.
not levied in the city of Winona.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I have always been a steady $100,000. I think, they do a great job. And again, my rural residents, you heard Buffy say their income is down, so for me to ask them for more is, it doesn't add to lot dollars, but it's just my basic philosophy. So I would propose a $100,000 levy request for 2019, and I feel that the Hampshire organization can work with that.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Jacob, to approve a $100,000 levy for the SEMSHA budget request. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. Thank you. Thank you. And at some point in the future, we'll discuss that housing trust. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, any departing words? You won't be back before us probably if you're retiring in March.
You probably see me again, but
You have to come to the podium so we get you on record.
Joe Wheeler, thanks for hearing us today, but at the end of March is when I plan on retiring, so you probably will see me a little bit more yet. This was, I thought I'd give Buffy an opportunity to come up here and present to you our levy request for the next year, but it's been enjoyable working with all you guys, and I look forward to working to you till the end of March. And we've this board, along with, has done a lot of good things for its residents in Winona County. So,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Buffy. Okay, moving on. 7.2 is the appointment of 2 county board members to the Joint Airport Zoning Board. And that is, it has been Commissioner Pomeroy and Commissioner Olson. And
So with you not
Right.
running again, me, Devin,
I wouldn't be allowed to be on that board yet, right?
so did
Yes,
did this actually, it says effective until July 2020. So would they take the position right now? Or would Commissioner Pomeroy be able
it
to
says the new
fulfill?
term. The new
Right,
term.
and it doesn't say what the new
When it
term
starts.
is.
Probably the end of
July.
Yeah,
Is
they
it
run
July
from
to
July to,
Oh, okay.
now.
Okay.
right.
So it would
So
start.
it probably would be pretty reasonable to pick somebody else.
Somebody else. Okay, all right. Commissioner Olson, are you still willing to serve? Okay, Commissioner Olson is willing to serve if the board sees that, and
I would volunteer, sir.
It's like not very many meetings at all, so.
I appreciate your service.
okay, Commissioner Kavesi is volunteering. Does anybody else want to volunteer? All right, then I would entertain a motion to appoint and reappoint.
And just for clarification, you need to be a commissioner to serve on this?
Yes.
Yeah, right, so, yeah,
Commissioner Kavesi has an election coming up too.
right.
But
But we can reappoint
we'd have
again.
to
If-
that's good.
Yeah.
Monica from the city will let you know. I'm sure she looks at the results.
Okay, you don't get any free airplane rides or miles or anything with the position?
No,
Okay.
no.
You can swim in the airport lake.
Which is open to the public, right? Okay, so do I have a motion?
So moved
Okay,
to appoint Commissioner Olson and Commissioner Kavesi.
Second.
all right, we have a motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy and second by Commissioner Jacob to reappoint Commissioner Olson and appoint Commissioner Kavesi. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Approved. All right, then 7.3, monthly finance. Mr. Moga.
Can I ask a really quick question before you get going? Do these reflect settlements?
These do not.
Okay.
No, this is
Good.
May.
Okay.
Yeah. We be in,
And that was actually in the June settlement. Because this is, we're doing the May.
May.
Right, okay.
We'll start with the May in the general fund. Beginning cash started at 9.5. Actual revenues are 764,000. Actual expenses are 1.5. Ending cash was 8.7. For the year, this beginning year started at 14.3. Actual revenues were 2.5. Actual expenses were 8.2. Ending cash was 8.7. Variance this year is a negative 5.6 compared to last year's 5.6, also in the general fund. If you look to the very bottom, variance is a negative 7.2 compared to a 9.1. Revenue, highway is the one that actually is creating that variance because they brought in more cash this year, positive. And then I also do want to point out that community services at this point, as of May 31st, would have been running a negative $3.3 million. Community services has been struggling all year long with a negative balance. There will be a tax settlement that will be here in June, but they still are at negative. I just read the report. Going through June, they were still negative. I think it was it was over 1.5 million. I think it was actually only climbing towards 2 million now.
That would be after settlement?
That was actually, actually settlement. That was actually using the expenses that occurred through June. So they're still running a negative amount.
It looks to me like we probably run $1 million behind last year.
We are expense-wise, we are running probably about $1 million, probably $750,000 to $1 million more than last year. There's some home placements that have occurred. There's also some expenses that occurred that were not picked up last year that are actually hitting this year's books.
Okay.
And that actually relates to, I think it was the sex offender program.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that was a big amount that was actually hitting this year versus last year. So they're running negative, and I see that to continue.
Pat, just the thought with our jail study and everything, we have these categories. Do we have like our jail and criminal justice thing in a grouping that we could pull that out to track that individually? Because right now it just falls under the general.
There's a jail.
We could pull out do you want it I guess what we need to know is more about what do you want included. Would it be the jail? Would it be, do you want the sheriff in there? Do you want, there's a lot of different categories.
We have a department called jail
Yeah.
that you can pull just the jail information.
Well, and a little alarming, Attorney Sonneman shared after one of the last meetings that since we've lost a judge, things have changed dramatically with our jail population. So I guess I would like to see, more people are being put in jail with these traveling judges, and to track that, to know where we're going with that, so that we can, I don't know if we can change anything or something. So I guess jail.
So just pretty much the jail by
Yeah.
itself, because we have a department by the jail by itself. So if you're just looking at the jail. Then we can get you that department if you're.
Yeah, because
actually-
sheriff
You're
is.
going to see the cost of transportation increase because the number of inmates has gone up, the daily population's gone up, and so what happens is some will have to be farmed out.
Right.
But it just started with the the change, so,
Okay, that would be appreciated, thank you.
Okay.
So would the jail fund include that transportation cost also?
Well, there's no jail, so the jail department would show that expense, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and can you show it prior year, current year?
Yep.
Yeah, where we're going with that. Okay, thank you.
Then we'll go on to the summary cash flow. Summary cash flow started out at 19.6. Actual revenues are 10.4. Actual expenses are 17.6. Ending cash is 12.8. Variance is kind of the same as last year. The last report we did was negative 7.1 compared to a 9.1. Any questions on that?
I would just say it's probably the same as last year if you look at highway,
Yeah, because the highway at this point was, what was it, 1.8 at this point. So we'll go to the summary budget. This is for May, so we're at 42%. Looking at all the, general fund, recycling, all of them are pretty much in that same range, except when you hit to human services at 49.84%. So again, they're running high in the expense area. The other thing that I just want to point out too is that the interest at this point for the year, we're budgeting 150, we're at 75,000, we're at 50%. And our interest kind of is up and down at, at different times when they're the CDs and interest is actually paid. So at this point, the interest seems to be on target, but again, that is a low number compared to the Any questions on these documents? If not, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the agenda. Just one real quick thing, Bob Bamenek related. Of course, it's Winona County Fair, and they had some really good, KTTC had a little article about them, and I do know the Winona Daily News had an article about it, and something about a robot. But anyway, there's a lot of good things going on in St. Charles. The 4-H non-livestock goes in today. The livestock comes in tomorrow. We're holding in the extension meeting at the fair. Are you doing Commissioner Jacob, are you doing a soil and water meeting?
Yeah, the same that morning.
Okay, at the fair, so a lot of committee meetings and just a lot of activities, and go out and support the fair and see the kids and all the open class and all the entertainment activities. They do a lot of work. Luckily, one of the last storms, they did lose a few small trees, but they did no property damage to buildings.
Are the onion rings back?
I'm not sure what vendors. Cheese curds, I'm sure.
The robot's making them.
The robot. Cheese curds and support the dairy, the malt trailer. and all that.
I have to say the 4-H T-shirts are getting a lot of run for their money. My son has it in China, and he's wearing it, so
Awesome. Good.
took it from me.
Good publicity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good onion rings, I can tell you that.
Cheese curds is my favorite. All right, any other business to be conducted at this time? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Olson, second by Commissioner Pomeroy to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.